Well, I think that you're going to go first. So if you want,
Yes.
and
All right,
that sounds good for me.
let's do it. So 5 minute opening from TJump. Go ahead.
Naturalism best explains everything. There's no reason to believe in a god. Done. Go.
All right, good. So 5 minute opening from Foxy. Go ahead.
Oh, was that it? Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to bore you to death for a little while here. So thank you for moderating as well, Frank. Good to see you there. What is it? In order to know anything, you need a system by which you can evaluate truth claim. In order to know something objectively, you need an ultimate authority that dictates the truth value of claims. TJump has no system by which he can justify things to an ultimate standard. This means any claim that he makes, that there could be some variable that undermines everything he says. If someone affirms a position like God might not exist, that is a positive statement. Therefore, the burden of proof would be on them to prove the position. Obviously, TJump will struggle to prove anything external to his mind, as he doesn't hold a God position. Sorry. And he can't debunk hard solipsism. So all we will hear today is assertion on assertion at the base level, till the base level where he presupposes. Oh dear, I've read that wrong. Okay, so all we'll hear today is assertion on assertion, which he presupposes at the base level. Then he will go on to criticize my position, because he claims I have no grounding. Obviously, this is an ungrounded presupposition, because he doesn't understand the difference between presuppositions and revelation. Having watched TJump versus Darth, and the way the debate went, I imagine TJump is going to be very difficult to talk to. Hopefully today we can find out the method by which TJump evaluates truth claims, and whether the system he uses is reliable to evaluate the truth value of claims to an ontological standard. TJump has developed a way to answer questions that is evasive, to say the least. But after seeing him debate Godless Girl on modern day debates, it is clear that he has no ground to make claims about truth to a level he could not be wrong about. So I hope everyone will bear that in mind when he says claims about absolutes, like his catchphrase, reality is reality. In order to justify that claim, he has to assume he is logical, the world is based on the world works based on logical principles, that the things he has learned are correct, that his memory is reliable, and much, much more. So let's see if he can demonstrate that today.
Are you done?
Okay. I guess
Ready?
I am done. Okay.
Good deal. So we're going to start the 30-minute open discussion whenever you guys are ready.
Whoa. What about my question time here?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead and ask your 10-minute question. And go ahead.
Okay. So just one more statement. Either truth reveals itself to you, or truth doesn't reveal itself to you. If truth doesn't reveal itself, then how could you know anything? So, TJump.
What?
1 second. Okay.
Are you cutting out or just pausing?
I would, obviously I'm pausing. I just misread something, so I'm all over the place. Okay. So, would someone that doesn't know anything know that they don't know anything?
No idea. I see no relevance to the topic.
Well, the topic's just Christianity versus atheism. I mean,
yeah. So I have no idea if someone could potentially. if someone didn't know anything, they would essentially be a rock. So it doesn't know anything. So asking if it can know that it doesn't know anything would be a contradiction. It's completely irrelevant to the topic.
So is it a no? Couldn't know anything?
I guess
can't
I don't
know
really
anything
care.
and
It's
it
not
can't know
relevant to the
anything?
topic. Like, can rocks
I
not
mean,
know they
saying
know nothing?
reality is reality isn't relevant. Okay.
What?
That's exactly the same as saying reality is reality.
What is?
Saying, look, would someone that doesn't know anything know that they don't know anything?
Again, I don't see how this is relevant to the topic.
Because we're talking about, how you justify your worldview at the moment.
Yeah, I don't see how that is connected to how I justify my worldview. Because my worldview starts with I think, therefore I am. So I exist. I know I exist.
You've got to try and answer in good faith. Come on now.
Not really.
So somebody that doesn't know it. Come on. Okay.
So
well, that's a bit
show
disingenuous.
Like, ask a question relevant to the topic, not random questions. Like, so my worldview starts with I think, therefore I am. So I know I exist. So I don't care what rocks can or can't know.
Okay.
I don't care.
Okay, well, it's a bit crazy that you're not willing to answer my questions. If I ask you other questions, are you just going to refuse to answer them?
If they're random gibberish that have nothing to do with the topic, yeah. I don't want to talk about random gibberish. Like,
so you could just say everything's not to do with the topic. Obviously, I'm trying
I could say that, but I'm not going to. So my worldview starts with I think, therefore I am. I know I exist. So talking about what things who don't know anything is irrelevant because that's not a part of anywhere in my worldview at all.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Hopefully you're not going to be so evasive. Maybe my opening statement was correct. Is it possible that the material world never existed? That's everything external to your mind never existed.
Maybe. Is it possible that the material world doesn't exist? Like, because if it does exist, well, then if it currently exists, then no, it's not possible it never existed. So either it did exist or it didn't exist.
I'm just asking you, is it possible that it didn't exist ever? It's just a
sure. It's possible that there isn't a physical world and it's just idealism is true. Idealism is possible.
Obviously, then it would follow that, maybe it's possible that dinosaurs never existed.
Sure.
Okay, well, then maybe it follows that maybe the Earth is flat.
Yep, if we're in the Matrix, the world could be flat.
Okay, well, maybe it's even possible that your brain never existed.
Yes, like if we're idealistic, that would be the same thing because brains are physical. So if we're in an idealistic universe, there is no brain.
Okay, so you can't ground anything to any ontological standard like that. So basically, you're a flat Earth believing dinosaur denier.
Nope, I never said any of that. So that doesn't follow from anything you said, unless you can show it does.
It does.
How so?
Listen back to what you just said.
So saying it's possible doesn't mean that it is the case. Possibility, and you don't need 100% certainty for knowledge. Okay. So neither of those things follow from what you said.
It does. It does.
You can't just say it does because you just asserting it does isn't an argument. You'd have to actually explain it. You have to form an argument and say this follows because.
Yeah, so you don't know whether it is the case or it's not. And I'm not, there's a lot of flat earthers out there that would hold the position that, it's possible that the Earth's round, but they just can't tell. People still call them flat earthers. If you say, oh, maybe it's possible dinosaurs never existed, well, maybe I could call you a dino denier by the same standard. I mean, it's pretty reasonable. I've not said anything that's out of line there. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway.
So what does that have to do with the topic?
Do you necessarily accept the necessity of referencing the necessity of God?
No. So I think, therefore I am. I exist.
Who sustains all contingent facts.
No. So I can say I think, therefore I am. I know I exist, and I never reference to God in that one bit.
So how can you ground a claim to an ontological standard?
I didn't.
So nothing that you know is grounded to an ontological standard.
Right. So I said I exist. I don't know what I am. Maybe I'm idealistic with just a soul. Maybe I'm a material brain. Maybe I'm a combination of the two. I've made no claims about ontology. I've just said that I exist, whatever I am. So I don't know what the fundamental nature of ontology is, and I don't need to have knowledge.
Well, obviously you're making statements now, so maybe I'll just make a statement that's not a question. If you don't accept the self-revelatory revelation of the Christian God, then you'd have no grounding to justify that, your sense perception was working reasonably reliably or like that.
I didn't say anything about my sense perception.
Anyway, if you deny the necessity of God as the necessary being who sustains all contingent facts, then that is a de facto denial of the Christian God. Wouldn't you agree?
I have no idea what you mean by that. So your first question was, do you, I can't rephrase it exactly as you said it, but do you accept the necessary thing, or that you need to presuppose the necessary thing? I said, no, I can know things without ever presupposing anything like a God. I can know I exist and make no claims about ontology whatsoever. Other than the fact I exist, I don't know what I am. I make no references to my sense experience. I make no references to the fundamental ontology of reality, and I need absolutely neither to make the claim I exist.
Okay, it's very interesting that you put that position forward, but actually I just asked you if you referenced, God, the necessity of referencing a necessary being.
Right, and I said no.
In order,
because so what I do, what I reference is my existence. I exist. That's what I reference, and I reference literally nothing else. So there's no reference to a God there.
Okay, so you don't reference some ultimacy, or are you saying that you're the ultimacy of reality?
No, so I make no claims about the ultimacy of reality other than that I'm in it. I don't know what my relation to it is in this statement. I don't know what I'm made of. I don't know if there's a God or not a God. I make no claims one way or the other. All I claim is that I exist, and I presuppose nothing.
So is it possible that everything that you know is actually contingent on there being a creator God which created and sustains you?
Is it? I don't know what that means. So it's not possible I could be wrong. No, it doesn't matter what way the world is.
I'm not saying that you're wrong about the fact you exist. I'm saying, is it possible that you're wrong about the fact that you don't need a creator God, that you're not, in order to state anything as true?
Wait, are you asking, is it possible there is a God? Yes, it is possible there is a God.
Okay, beautiful. That will do. Okay, so we've done it. We can move on to the open discussion.
Okay, 30-minute open discussion. Go ahead, then.
Ooh, that's low. All right, so
sorry about my volume.
Oh,
I appreciate the honesty as well, TJump. I wasn't expecting you to be. I mean, especially after the first question, I wasn't expecting it to be that easy to get you to go through the questions. But yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, the first question just didn't seem relevant to me. Like, it seems like just a can a lie or not lie? So it seemed like a paradox. But yeah, so my question is like, is it possible for there to be a universe with a necessary thing that isn't conscious?
No, the necessary, the ultimacy that sustains everything must exist necessarily.
So I agreed with that, but I took out the consciousness. So we can still have an ultimacy, a necessary thing. It just has no consciousness to it. So there's a necessary quantum field. Go ahead.
I think that then we'll get into, so then it will come down to like, is it possible for an unconscious ultimacy, some ultimacy that has no conscious capabilities, would be able to sustain our ability to choose freely? Now, I think that obviously, and maybe you'll agree with me, that we live in a deterministic, like every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Every action's governed by a previous reaction in the world that you perceive, right?
Yeah, the world is partially determined and partially random, and just a combination of those two things.
So where do you see randomness in the universe? Can you justify knowledge of that claim to an ultimate standard, or is that just an assertion, an ungrounded assertion?
What does this have to do with the question? So my question was, like, I base that off physics, which is all induction, but that's irrelevant to my question. My question was, is it possible to have an ultimate thing which isn't conscious? And then you said free choice. Like, so I think free choice is impossible. It's not even logically coherent. So that would essentially refute that argument off of the first stage. But even if I granted free will does exist, free will could also be a product of a non-conscious thing. So you wouldn't need a conscious thing to do that. So neither of the.
Well, I wouldn't say that you refuted it. I'd just say that you asserted that free will didn't exist and everything was determined.
Right.
But
So
if you
I'm
were
saying
to-
for anyone who accepts my logic that it's logically impossible, that argument is immediately done. But I can grant the argument and say, okay, there is a free will and we do have free choice, and say that's still possible without an ultimate mind. So it wouldn't matter even if it wasn't the case.
Well, I mean, just one more question, I guess. Logically possible that you're entirely illogical.
No.
How could you justify? Sorry.
Because I can't be wrong about my belief I exist, therefore I have to be in some part logical.
I mean, I'd agree that you have to be in some part logical, but I mean, from your perspective, like, do you have like some kind of grounding principle that allows you to proclaim that, or are you just saying that you know that you exist and so therefore you must be logical in order to work that out, even though, well, that's just an assertion again?
Well, so because in my claim I make no claims about what the fundamental nature of reality is, whatever the fundamental nature of reality is, it sustains the fact that I exist. Therefore, my description, my language that I use to describe that, which is logic, must necessarily be correct because it must necessarily be describing whatever the fundamental nature of reality is. So I can ground my knowledge in whatever the fundamental nature of reality is, regardless of whether or not it's a God or not.
Nature of reality?
What?
Isn't that a claim about the fundamental nature of reality?
No, because I'm not saying anything about it. I'm just saying it's there.
Like you said that you make no claim about the fundamental nature of reality.
Yeah, other than the fact that it's there.
Okay, so that is a claim about the fundamental nature of reality.
Sure, but that follows from the fact that I exist.
Well, obviously in order to, doesn't just follow from that. I mean, you obviously have to presuppose that you're logical, that the world works based on logical principles. I mentioned that right at the start of my opening.
Nope, I don't have to presuppose any of that.
Obviously. Yeah.
Nope. So because I exist, like, logical? So I can just grant I'm illogical. I don't care if I'm logical or not. If I believe I exist, well, I must still be right. It's not possible, even given a diletheistic or parrot-consistent logic, I still exist. So it doesn't make a difference whether I grant or presuppose logic. I don't presuppose anything. I'm just observing the fact that I exist. And because I exist in reality, regardless of whether or not I realize it, I am a part of the fundamental nature of reality because I'm in reality, and regardless of what else there is. So it makes no difference. There is some part of reality that exists because I'm in it. And so there must be some fundamental nature to it.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
But yeah, so my claims to knowledge here is irrelevant. So this is all true regardless of whether I'm logical or whether I know it. I don't need to know any of this. It's true regardless of whether or not I know it.
So, but you don't know whether you're being logical. You could just be entirely irrational.
Oh, nope. I know I'm being logical because I can ground it off the fact that I believe I exist. And I can't be wrong. So I can ground logic in that one fact. Logic is just a descriptive language. That's all it is.
But that doesn't mean that you can justify anything else necessarily using logic.
Sure it does. So if I know I exist and I'm using labels for myself and my experience, and I can categorize those labels as A and not A, and I can perceive things like I see a camera. Now, maybe it's not there, could be an illusion, and I see a TV, also could be an illusion, but I see those as separate things. And that experience I'm having, even if it's an illusion, can still be described using the language, the A, the not A language that I get based off of my existence. So logic as a language can be applied to things, and I know it can't be wrong, without any reference to any ultimate nature of reality. It's just using the fact that it applies to my own existence. But you still haven't answered my question.
Okay, let's say that you have categorized a camera, right?
Sure.
Now, in order to recognize a camera, you're going to have to use your sense perception in order to evaluate, whether it is truly a camera or not, right?
Oh, no. So again, I'm saying that my sense perception could be entirely wrong. This could just be entirely made up in my head. These made up categories of camera and TV are still categories. I can still label them using the language that I have constructed to describe my existence. So whether my sense perception doesn't matter here, whether or not my imagination is accurate doesn't matter here. All that matters is the labels. But again, you haven't answered my question here. So I said, why can't the ultimate nature of reality be non-conscious? Because it seemed like it can. No problem.
Oh, in order for you to have the ability to choose freely, then it would have to be. And any argument that you don't have the ability to choose freely would lead you to a position where you wouldn't be able to justify that you were correct about anything you thought necessarily.
I didn't ask about my correctness.
Everything that you claim.
So I'm not asking about epistemology
here.
Well,
in order, it's necessary. Okay. It's necessarily the case that if you say that you're determined in every single way, then the claims that you make from, within the material world that's deterministic could be reactions based on chemical reactions in your brain. So
okay, but none of that matters.
You say things
that doesn't matter to my
chemical
argument.
Reactions that occur in your brain.
I'm not asking about epistemology. So none of my brain doesn't matter. So Foxy, none of that matters. So I don't care about my brain here. My brain can be as wrong as it wants to be. I don't care.
I was just trying to get that little point out there.
That's not a point. So that's completely irrelevant to my question. My question was, can the necessary thing be non-conscious? I didn't say I knew anything there. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Why? I was trying to.
Well, you said free will, which I already debunked. So I already debunked. I said free will, one, doesn't exist. It's impossible. Even if it did exist, it can still occur by a non-conscious entity. So you can still have free choices and be grounded in a necessary non-conscious thing. Why is that impossible?
Well, first off, you didn't debunk free will. That's just the claim you made that free will doesn't exist. That's definitely not a debunker. I mean, what was the argument you gave to debunk free will?
Everything is either determined or random. Remember, I told you everything in the universe is determined or random, and no combination of those two things is free. But again, that you kind of skipped over the main part here. Even if I grant free will is real, you can still have free will on a non-conscious thing, which debunks your argument, because your argument is that you must have a conscious necessary thing to have free choices. So me saying, no, you don't, you can have free choices without a conscious necessary thing, if that's true, completely debunks your argument. So why is that impossible?
I don't think that does debunk anything. Okay, so you've said that it's either random or it's determined.
So no, again, so that's totally irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. So again, my argument is that even if there is free choices,
you're just going to talk for the next thing.
Well, yeah, if you keep going down irrelevant points that don't actually address what I asked, I'm going to stop you so we can try to get to what I actually asked.
I am not going down irrelevant
That's
points.
literally what you are. So stop and listen and let me explain to you. So I don't care if free will exists or not. Either way, you lose. Stop. So if free will exists, Foxy, stop and listen to the actual question and then respond. So you said that if there is free choice, in order for it to be grounded, it must be grounded in a conscious necessary thing. I said no. I first said free will is impossible, but that doesn't matter to the argument. That's not the argument I'm making. The argument I'm making is the next thing I said multiple times, which you just ignored. Even if there is free will, you can have free choices grounded in something that isn't conscious. Prove that is impossible.
What is it? So, I mean, I want to address the previous point.
That wasn't a point. That was never a point in the argument.
Free will can be grounded. I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Something unconscious. Breakdown of your question?
Yes, that was correct.
Okay. Okay, so this is it, right? Now, I didn't really get to justify the exact reason why, in order to have free will, you need a conscious agent that's capable of knowing every single instance in space and time, so that it can intervene in the deterministic nature of reality to bestow you with the ability to choose freely. Right? We didn't get to go through the exact reasons why. I'd like to be able to explain that.
Go for it. That was the question I asked.
Well, not exactly. So this is it. In order for you to be able to transcend the deterministic nature of reality, then there would have to be something that lies outside of the deterministic nature of reality in order to intervene and allow you to transcend. Would you not agree?
Well, there has to be a third property of non-determinism and non-randomness, and that third property would exist in reality, yes. It could be in the nature of a god,
and it would have to be...
So it could be in the nature of a god, or it could be in the nature of naturalistic pantheism, just an eternal, all-powerful nature. Either of those can have the property and give you, by extension, the ability to escape determinism.
Okay, so look, I mean, we can hit the debunker for pantheism in a second, but the thing that sits outside of the deterministic nature of reality, in order to be able to intervene at given moments in time, it would have to be aware through some kind of means of all of the moments where you come to a decision-making crossroads in your mind, so that it can intervene and allow you the ability to transcend.
No.
Correct?
No, I mean, there's tons of forces. None of them are aware of anything, but they interact just fine. So this could be a force, just like any other force.
Something that wasn't aware of you coming to a decision-making crossroads in your mind, be able to intervene at that moment in order to allow you to the ability to choose freely in that moment.
Because there is a third process, the freeness process, if you want to call it, and that process can be a result of a law of nature that we haven't discovered yet. And so that law of nature can imbue us with this third process. It doesn't at all times. We always have this process there. We are only activating it at certain times.
So what the thing would have to be able to do is to know every single person's mind, and it would have to be able to react based on the workings of...
So that wasn't in my analogy. Remember, my analogy is it's a law of nature that is everywhere. It's universal like gravity. So it's always there. So it doesn't know anything. It has no brain. And our brains act in such a way that can interact with it. And when we are trying to make a decision, we then gain this freeness ability by interacting with this law. So the law doesn't know anything. It doesn't care. We can still have access to it just fine.
Well, in order to react, it would have to be aware in some way, even if it was just reactionary. It would have to be aware of the brain states, right?
No, it could be everywhere all at once, like gravity is, and then our brain states can interact with it. So it doesn't change. It's always there. It doesn't react. It's our brains that interact with it already being there.
Okay, well, that's an interesting claim, but I'm obviously, I don't think that really you have a grounding in order to make assertions about the ontological world to that degree. Whereas obviously me, being a Christian and accepting the revelation of the Christian God, I have grounds to make claims about those sorts of things. Now,
right.
It doesn't seem reasonable to me for you to say that something that would be able to react based on every single one of every single person's brain states would be able to do that without being consciously aware of all of those states. How would something be able to institute your ability to make free will conscious decisions if it wasn't consciously aware of every single one of your brain states?
The exact same way
And
photons interact with our eyes, even though the photons aren't aware of when our eyes are open. They're always there, and we open our eyes, and then we see the photons. So my question to you is why... So that's the question is you are asserting that there's a difference between these two, that you're having a God to ground the free choices thingy is somehow better than having this law of nature to ground the free choices thingy. And I'm asking how, like, what is your basis for concluding one is better than the other?
Well, the thing is that consciousness is very different to a photon, right? Because your ability to be consciously aware of the world around you and stuff like that, and be able to rationalize, based on logical inferences in your mind, right? Much different to the idea of, just a photon bouncing off of, your retina or something. It's a much more complicated process. It's much more involved. And in order for something to be able to do that on a level where it's not just doing it for me, it's doing it for you and every other person in the world simultaneously. I mean, I feel like it, is a bit of a stretch to say that it wouldn't be consciously aware itself. It has to be able to react based on all the things in the universe, right? It has to be able to transcend the thing. It has to be able to transcend the set of all things, right? It has to be able to intervene to allow you to make free will decisions based on your own person. So it just, there's not anything that you're really offering up as, a good reason why it wouldn't be able to do that. And maybe we can hit this pantheism thing, because you said, well, maybe it could just be a pantheistic
before we get to that,
but
I wanted to mention that if we look at all the different things that could be candidates for a universal instantiation of some ability, gravity and electromagnetism and the physics forces are the best candidates for things that are actually universal. Minds are not. Minds are very particular things that exist in very particular locations, as far as we can tell. So if we want to say that there is this free will ability that can permeate all space and time, it's a better argument to claim that it's more like gravity and a law of nature that isn't conscious than to say it's conscious. It is a far stronger argument to say it's more like gravity, if we want to say that it permeates all space and time, than to say it as a mind, because minds do not permeate all space and time. You wanted to bring up pantheism.
Well, I mean, gravity is not conscious. Okay,
Right.
that's the next one.
Yes.
Gravity is okay. So pantheism. So the thing about pantheism is that pantheism, and I hope you'd agree, is that everything is God, right?
Nope. That's just a version.
So what when you're stating pantheism here, what do you mean by that?
Eternal, all-powerful nature, no mind. Did you hear me? Or
What?
eternal, all-powerful
Nope.
nature, no mind.
Eternal, all-powerful nature, no mind.
10 minutes.
So, love it. Thank you. So, see, the thing about pantheism is that it always leads to a contradiction. Because if me and you are God and we disagree, contradicts himself.
So again, pantheism isn't everything is God. So that's not the case.
Well, that's sort of what the pan means. All eternal, all-powerful nature. We part of nature?
Yes, we are a part of nature, but not every part of nature is eternal and all-powerful. That rock is not eternal and all-powerful. The camera is not eternal and all-powerful. So the fact that some parts of nature are eternal and all-powerful does not mean that literally everything in nature is itself eternal and all-powerful. It's composition division fallacy. So naturalistic pantheism can be understood that there is a quantum field, and the quantum field is eternal and all-powerful, and it created all the contingent things like us and gravity and all the other stuff.
So you're saying individual parts of nature can even though they so So what you're saying is like essentially like what would the word be for that? Sorry. So it's like a collaboration of all things is what makes something true. So if me and you disagree, that doesn't matter. But if the majority of reality, let's say, all coalesce in a particular way, then that's what makes something.
No, truth is a property of sentences. If the sentence corresponds to reality, then it's true.
The synthesis.
Like if I said, the world is round. Now, if it's the case that the world is round, then that sentence is true.
But you don't know whether it's round.
Well, whether I know it is irrelevant to a truth claim. So truth is true regardless of anybody knows it. Right? You would agree with that, right? Like if God has something, I'm sure there's things God knows that you don't know, and those things are true even though you don't know them, right?
Or something. Yeah. You know, I don't know the distance to the from to the moon in centimeters.
Right. So I'm saying the
That's
same
what
thing.
I
I'm
like
saying
to go
that
with.
the truth is
But
what
God
corresponds
knows
to
that.
reality, and I don't need to know it. Whether I know it or not doesn't make a difference. It's still true because it corresponds to reality, regardless of whether I know it or not.
Okay, but like, you know, you don't know.
That's,
Yeah.
there's lots of things I do not
Okay.
know that are true. Yes.
I mean, I obviously disagree with this definition of pantheism. For me, pantheism is that God is everything, hence the pantheism. Pan obviously being everything, theism being God, everything is God. I sort of get what you mean about the individual parts, and that's interesting.
Oh, well, just to
I
clarify,
just don't
so
know if you
so
call that pantheism.
so this definition doesn't come from me. I didn't make this up. This is a definition that's stolen straight from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on the section of pantheism. If you just Google naturalistic pantheism, it'd be the first thing that pops up. I didn't make this definition. It has nothing to do with me.
Naturalistic theism. Sorry, I thought that you were just talking about.
Yeah, it's a naturalistic pantheism, so
Yeah,
there's a preface there.
Very interesting.
SEP, Stanford
Okay.
Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Wolfgang.
Okay. You made the claim that gravity is not conscious. I mean, do you want to
Yes.
just break that down for me? Like, how do you know? I mean, if you don't know that the Earth is necessarily round, I mean, then maybe how would you know that gravity wasn't conscious?
We're just going
Have you
based off
ever
of.
heard Darth say,
Well,
"Peter sleeps fast under the West"?
I'm just going based off of induction. The
Just,
only things that we know are conscious have brains, and we doesn't seem that gravity has a brain anywhere, as far as we can tell.
but you can't
Right, we can't tell with absolute certainty, but we don't need
see
to.
that. Okay, so you don't know.
We don't need certainty for knowledge.
Oh, I thought you needed it to be true. I mean, can something that's possibly false be true?
Something is true regardless of whether or not I know it with certainty. So it is either 100% true that gravity is conscious, or it's 100% true that gravity is not conscious. And if I believe that gravity is not conscious and I have a justification for that belief, which is induction, and it happens to be true, even if I don't have certainty about it, it's still knowledge because it's still a justified true belief. The justification doesn't have to get you to that 100% certainty. It just has to be 100% true, regardless of whether or not your justification gets you there.
Very interesting. Obviously, I don't know if you know, we've had a lot of conversations about this in the politics and religion chat. So that sounds like a form of fallibilism, justification.
Yes, correct.
And belief doesn't have to be true. So you wouldn't say that you know anything then. You could be justified and you could believe it, but you wouldn't necessarily know it's true. Anything external to your mind, that is.
So I can know with 100% certainty many things from my internal perspective, but I can't know with 100% certainty things outside of my mind. No, but I still know them because you don't need 100% certainty. There's still knowledge.
I thought that knowledge needed it to be true, and if you can't know that it's necessarily true, then you wouldn't be able to justify claiming knowledge.
Correct. It
You've
does
got
need.
justified belief, but you've not got knowledge
Well,
necessarily.
remember, so
It might be knowledge, but you've got no way to account for knowledge to that degree.
there's a difference between knowledge and certainty, certain knowledge. So you're right, it has to be true to be knowledge, correct, justified, true belief. But the justification doesn't have to be 100%. That's the part that you keep talking about when you say you don't know it's knowledge, you don't have 100% justification, is the part that you're arguing against. But that doesn't change the truth value. The truth value is independent of the justification value. So my justification value, as long as it's above 50%, I don't have to have 100% certainty that it's true to still call it knowledge. What is this? What was the topic that we were leading into? What got us here?
You were saying that
Gravity isn't
basically
conscious.
you made the claim that gravity isn't conscious. I just wanted to, because you obviously don't know whether the Earth's necessarily round. I just want to clarify.
Right. So I can grant I don't have 100% certainty that gravity isn't conscious. I can just say that with a high level of certainty, due to induction, it isn't. And so with that same level of certainty, I have a more justified reason to conclude that whatever the fundamental nature of gives us free will is probably going to be more like what we know about gravity than what we know about consciousness is, because the inductive comparison holds better with what we know about gravity than it does with what we know about consciousness. Did you have any other reasons, or that the necessary thing can't be naturalistic pantheism, a non-conscious thing other than free will?
The way that I like to say it is that in order to know anything, you need a system by which you can evaluate truth claims, and in order to know something objectively, then you need ultimate authority that dictates the truth value of claims. Now, in order for you to know something, because as a human we are fallible in many ways, you would have to have knowledge. You would have to have knowledge of some things in such a way that you could not be wrong. Right now, the only way that you'd be able to reach that level of knowledge is if there was an all-knowing, transcendental thing intervene to bestow you with information in such a way that you couldn't be wrong about it. So I think that the very fact that you claim to know that you exist and you couldn't be wrong about that, that's a statement about something that you could not be wrong about. And like I just said, the only way to know something in such a way you couldn't be wrong about it is if there is an ultimate authority that dictates the truth value of claims. So that's evidence in itself.
Right. So I agreed with all that, though.
Transcendental ultimacy.
But I agreed with all that, and I asked, why does the transcendental ultimate have to be a mind versus a non-mind?
To allow us all of the things that, all of the faculties that we have in our lives, ultimacy would have to be able to institute a world in that way. Now, it seems
I'm not following.
Impossible, right? Completely absurd to start predicating a position where the ultimacy of reality is less capable than we are, seeing as it instituted everything and created us in the way that we are. You have no justification for that. So
not following. So I never said it's less capable. It's infinite, it's all powerful and eternal. So it's obviously more capable than we are. It doesn't need to be conscious to be more capable than we are. Like large planets are more capable than we are. Black holes are clearly more capable than we are.
Guys, time's up, but do you guys want to keep going, or?
I think that what we should do is make a closing.
Okay. All right, Tom, go ahead. Your 5-minute closing.
Okay, so there is obviously a fundamental nature to reality, and we don't need to know anything about it to have knowledge. We just need to know it's there, and we can know that because we exist. So without making any claims about the fundamental nature of reality, we can gain knowledge and build systems of logic to describe reality. And using that systems of logic, we can construct models of reality with high levels of certainty. And that's what we do with science. And there's absolutely no reason to believe that that fundamental thing is a conscious entity, especially not the Christian one. And everything in the universe could be explained better, more parsimoniously, has more explanatory power. To say it's more like naturalistic pantheism, which is just a force or law of nature, and there's nothing that can't explain. So it's better to go with that explanation than a Christian one. I'll conclude there.
All right, Foxy, go ahead with your 5-minute closing.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry, I just needed to put that down because I'm of thought. Okay, super. So obviously, the whole point about, the transcendental ultimacy, being conscious, you said obviously it needs to be more capable than us. And I think that the claim that it needs to be more capable than us, but it doesn't need to be conscious necessarily, I don't think that would make it necessarily more capable than us. I mean, how would it be able to institute a world where we have the ability to be conscious in the way that we do if it wasn't conscious itself? It doesn't make sense that it will be able to intervene, create everything, bestow us with the ability to choose freely, unless it had some idea of what it was doing. Obviously with all the complexity in the universe, I mean, maybe I could make an argument for intelligent design, I'll just say that you already understand how that follows. Obviously you made a couple of claims. You said, gravity is not conscious. You said, you defined naturalistic pantheism. We've been speaking in the English language, and you're pretty articulate and stuff like that. So obviously you do know some stuff, even if you deny knowledge of that to a degree of certainty. The main thing that I want to hit at here is you said that certain knowledge is not knowledge. Certain about something, and then you can claim that you know it. But that would be like saying, I can flip a coin and know that it's going to be heads because I'm 50% sure that it's going to land on heads. Obviously, earlier, just to reiterate that, you said it's possible that dinosaurs never existed. It's possible that the Earth's flat. It's possible that your brain doesn't exist. If you don't know any of those things, then any claim that you've made about all of this other stuff is sort of undermined by that. So, it's a shame that you didn't answer my first question, because that, I feel like, was the most fun of all. But it was good talking to you.
Thanks, you too.
Guys, do you guys want to take Q&A, or do you guys just want to go?
Sure. I'm open for Q&A.
What about you, Fox? Are you cool with that?
I mean, I'll stay, for about 10 minutes or so, but I do want to get off. So, yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. If anybody wants to ask questions, please request it. You should be able to. And I'll let you on, and you can ask whatever question you want.
So, a question for TJump. Are you going to debate Godless Girl again anytime soon?
Sure, if she pays me $50.
Oh, yeah.
That's like my actual normal standard for just people to debate on my channel who invite me to debate. It's like, pay me $50 and I'll debate you.
Expensive. Then
Dillahunty charges like $500.
TV. He charges you £2 a go to play him on the UFC game. So Keenan KTV, if anybody's interested. that we've got nobody. Nobody wants to talk to us.
Well, there's like people sending requests. Like I see, yeah, there's somebody in there who had a
Oh
request.
God, J.L. Warren.
Hey, Foxy.
I don't think that we'll ever be able to get our answer off here, but we'll give it our best shot, eh?
Well, it's really more a question for you. So, is your God a logical being? And if so, why can't I just appeal to the laws of logic that transcend that God and the universe for my ontology?
Is my God a logical being? God is logical, and if you claim that the laws of logic are the ultimate out then?
I think you might have just gone back to the listening, but I think
my
he's still there.
phone's cutting out. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, so
if you claim that the laws of logic are the ultimacy of reality, then the problem would be is that what you're saying is that there's nothing that underpins and upholds the laws of logic. So you'll basically be saying they were eternal. But how would you be able to justify that the laws of logic were eternal unless you had some kind of foundation from which you could make claims about the eternal nature of any given thing? I mean, it doesn't make sense to affirm something is a particular way eternally if you have no grounding by which you can buy anything to that degree.
I think his question was like, if God has to obey the laws of logic, like God can't be God and not God at the same time, then God is subject to the laws of logic which are above him, and he would use those laws that are above God as his justification rather than the God, something like that.
Yeah, I think when you look at the idea of God is God institutes the world in the way that it is. So the way that we see the world and the laws that underpin the world that we perceive, right, they all come from God. So if God's not really bound by anything, he's a non-contingent transcendental, right, that all things are contingent on. It just because we perceive the world in a particular way where A cannot equal not A, that doesn't mean that God, even though obviously it's not within his nature to do so, wouldn't be able to transcend any set of things, including logic.
So you would say that God could make himself exist and not exist at the same time if he wanted to?
I don't think that God sort of because obviously God's metaphysical, then he doesn't fall within like an understanding of the world from a physical perspective. Like also God sits outside of time. So obviously it's the case that we all die. So, if all instances in space and time are instituted simultaneously from a perspective of God, like all instances are actualized at the same time, then exist and not exist at the same time. You're dead and alive in this moment because all moments in space and time are simultaneous.
What I mean, like, could God himself, not me, like I may be able to exist and not exist if there's like multiple points in the present, but could God himself both exist and not exist?
Within God's nature to do that. The reason that the world's created and instituted in the way that it is because that's that's something that we can come to know about God's nature, is that God isn't that way inclined. He's orderly. He brings order out of chaos. He's not something that creates chaos out of order. I just can't understand how you'd be able to posit that as a possibility. It's just not in his nature to do that.
We got a chat or a question from Charles. Did we ever solve the reasons versus randomness dichotomy? What was the third option? Was there some way out that would provide a place for free will? So yeah, my argument against free will was everything is either determined or random. If it's done for reasons, then it's determined. If it's done for no reasons, then it's random. That's a logical dichotomy, either P or not P. So if those are the only two options and neither of those gets you free will, how is free will even possible? That would be my argument against free will being logically possible.
Well, you know, what that counts out, and you're the one that the burden of proof would be on for that, you know, the reason. Well, because basically, for God to allow us to make decisions based on our own nature in given moments in time. So to separate us from the deterministic nature of reality in order to allow us to make decisions based on our own free will, which would be our own essence, our own nature. So if you think that that's not possible, then how would you be able to justify that?
I would say that it's anything we define as a determination would be done for a reason. So if it was done for a reason, like if God gave us some ability because he loved us or whatever, then that action was determined by the reasons of his nature. So he didn't choose it. He had no free choice in that option. He was determined to do it by his nature, and so it wasn't free. Or God has some randomness feature inside of him that has no reasons connected to it whatsoever, and so he's does it for no reason at all. It's just completely random. And those really seem to be the only two options. Either God does something because he's determined to do it by his nature, or God does something because he has no determining factor whatsoever and it's completely random. And it doesn't seem like there could be any combination of those two things could get even God a free will thingy. So what could this free will thingy in God actually be if every one of his decisions is going to be determined by his nature, meaning it's not free, or completely random, meaning it's not free?
I think that you're just like projecting your understanding of the world onto God. Like I don't see why God would be bound by any deterministic nature of affairs if he transcends the material nature of reality. I mean, you said that there must be some transcendental thing. Would the transcendental thing necessarily be bound by a deterministic system?
I think based off of what you said, I would say yes, because you've said that God wouldn't do something like make himself exist and not exist because it's against his nature. So you're saying his nature has some determining influence on his actions, and he's not going to go against that nature. So it seems like, based on your definition, that God would be determined by his nature.
Okay, but then you're saying that, like, so say that I was a particular way inclined. Let's say I'm a pretty charitable guy. That doesn't mean somebody's forcing me to do charity work, does it?
Well, right. So I don't think anyone is forcing God. I think it's his nature is forcing him, and he doesn't have a choice in that. Like, what?
Then my nature's forcing me to be charitable, or your
Yes.
nature's forcing you to be charitable.
Yeah. So in the deterministic worldview, we're all forced by our nature.
You choose not to be charitable.
Yeah. So in our worldview, everyone is determined.
Yeah, I don't think that you've really justified that is necessarily the case.
Well,
yeah, but then you're just projecting your worldview, even though you don't have a grounding by which you can justify anything to that degree again.
Right. So we're not trying to justify that those are the only two possibilities. Those just seem to be the only possibilities we can conceive of. And we're asking you, what is the third possibility? Because we see it's either P or not P, reasons or no reasons. And we're asking, what is the third possibility? Because you're the one claiming that this third possibility exists. So you would have the burden of proof to show that there is such a thing, or that such a thing is possible.
Yeah. Well, I think that you'd have the burden of proof to show that it's not, because you made the positive change claim that it's only random or reasons, right? You made that claim. Now the thing is that, you know, you've not justified why there couldn't be a thing, nature, and that doesn't mean that it's necessarily bound by its nature. Like maybe it could transcend its nature in a particular way, like, you know, how humans do. They do something that they don't want to do. Like maybe, you know, I didn't like the idea of coming here and debating you today, but I decided to come and debate you anyway, you know. And points that
when you say he's bound by his nature, right?
Christ is rising.
His nature is him, TJump. His nature is not outside of him. So you're just saying he's bound by himself. I don't see what the point of that is.
Well, it would be, is God's nature determined by his conscious desires, or is his conscious desires determined by his nature? Like, can God change his nature at will, or would God not be able to change his nature by will?
Both his conscious desires and his will are both a part of God. Like, none of it is outside of him. So I just, again, don't really see the relevance.
Well, so if God's consciousness can change his nature, then his nature is arbitrary because he can change it whenever he wants. If God's consciousness is determined by his nature, then his decisions aren't arbitrary. So he can't like command everyone that killing is good one day and that's somehow going to happen. And because it's determined by his nature. So the question here is like, which part of his nature is stronger? Is it his inbuilt determined nature of his features essentially, or is it his conscious desires? Which one wins if they conflict hypothetically?
It would be that they would be in perfect sync, in perfect synchronization and harmony.
Right, but that isn't the question. So the question is if God changed his mind consciously, is that impossible because his nature would prevent it? Or if it is possible, would that change his nature? I think he left.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Oh, okay. Prove you have one. One sec.
This question is for Foxy. So I think TJump has clearly presented a logical dichotomy, right? When it comes to determinism and randomness. And you're saying that there's something else that is also there with God, which is why he's not bounded by that. So, but it's not really reasonable to say that because these are the only things that we can perceive, right? As using reason and logic. So how do you think you're justified? Because it would be unreasonable to say that there's something else that's helping God to do that, because we have no reason to think so.
Sorry, I sort of cut off there. I had to restart my phone, so I totally missed that. But I mean, just from the end of it, I can gather that maybe you were.
Yeah, I think what I was saying, that you're saying that God is not bound by that, but the way we perceive things, the way we see logic, those are the only two options, only two reasonable options that we have. When you say there's a third option, and you're simply asserting that, how do you think that's justified? It would be unreasonable claim, right?
I think that you guys are asserting that there are only two options. I mean, I don't think that you've drawn a necessary dichotomy or anything like that. So, I mean, to claim that there's only two options regarded, the burden of proof would be on you. For me, obviously, God acts based on his nature, and he's not bound by his nature. It's just a part of him, like Christ is rising was saying. But yeah, I don't know. I appreciate your question anyway, bro.
You said we haven't presented a logical dichotomy. Would you consider P or not P a logical dichotomy?
I mean, what's P in reference to?
Reasons or no reasons?
reasons or no reasons, I mean, I don't think that that's analogous to the point you were making about either things are made for reasons or they're determined.
So the argument is that either a choice is made for reasons, like I chose chocolate because I like it, and so the choice was determined by the reasons, or the choice was made for no reason, like I just have a choice between chocolate and vanilla and I just randomly pick chocolate, in which case it's random. And so either it's determined by reasons or it has no reasons, in which case it's random. So P reasons, not P no reasons, determined versus random.
Okay, so you're just saying that if something has a reason, then it's determined, and if, you know, it's random if you choose something that goes against like a primary reason. Like maybe you could have a number of different reasons, like, you know, the reason that you don't want to go into a burning house is because, you know, it's hot and you'll probably get burnt. But maybe there's an overriding factor, you know, like, you know, there's a child in the building and you want to save them. So it doesn't mean, I mean, there's reasons to make either decision. I mean, the free will is, you know, your ability to make a decision based on your own nature, your own essence in that moment. So I don't know whether the thing that you're saying, I mean, I think that the way that you're like slicing it up here
Wouldn't the
isn't
child
quite.
also be another reason? The
Yes.
child is also another reason, right?
So reasons, when I say reasons or no reasons, reasons would be the sum of all reasons for and against. So if you have like 51% reason to go into the house, so you choose to go into the house because the reasons determine that you're going to do it because they're more than the reasons not to, that would be determined because you're determined by the reasons, the sum total of the reasons. No reasons would be like there's literally nothing. It's exactly 50-50 for and against, or exactly 0 for and against. Yeah. And you somehow make a decision in that situation. How did you make that decision? Was it done for, if there's no reasons that incline you one way or the other, and it's either 50-50 or 0-0, then there must be some either completely random, so there's nothing determining it, or there must be some other factor there. And we're asking, what is that other factor that could allow you to make a decision in that case where all of the reasons are 50-50?
Well, I mean, you're saying no reasons. I mean, that's interesting as well. Like, no reasons in that case means that something doing something, but like, or something's happening based on a completely non-contingent state of affairs. I don't know if that's possible. Like, everything is contingent on something or another, i.e., you know, you are a particular way inclined because that's the kind of person you are, and so you'd in line with your own person. I sort of, I mean, the way that you're slicing it up, I don't think is like.
I think Foxy is like,
really.
It's not necessary that we do random things. Us humans always have reasons, but the only alternate option is randomness to what we do. So that's what I think.
We can
that
also
would be your only alternate option.
We also have examples of randomness.
Well,
so if I chose you, if I asked you to pick between two things, you had no idea what they were, that would be essentially random because you'd have no reasons to pick between one or the other.
I mean, yeah, so you're saying you could go for the red door or the blue door? Maybe you choose the red door because you like red more or something like that. But then there's still technically a reason.
I'd just like to make the point that there are reasons. Maybe the distinguishing factor here is that, like, for human beings, the reasons would be contingent on God, on how he created the world, on the laws of nature, etc., etc. But for God, there are reasons. He's not doing things randomly. But all those reasons are all within him, within his nature, his essence, his being. They're not reasons that are coming from outside.
Yeah, that's what I don't get. I mean, he's saying that there'd be like some non-contingent state of affairs where something was acting based on nothing at all. I mean, obviously, if you act based on internal fact, there's still reasons there, even if you decide to go against your nature to make a free will decision to, do something, against your nature.
Well,
You
that's the
still
question.
would have some kind of reason for.
That's the question. Is like
I just don't
how
understand.
if you're doing something for a reason, like it's in your nature, and then it doesn't seem like it's freedom. That's not really a free choice because you didn't choose your nature. Your nature is something that was
Cut off
chosen.
again?
What?
Right. But the way that we define God is the source of everything, the source of logic, the source of nature, the source of all things. So there's nothing outside of him. None of these things he's not dependent on these. They're all essentially belonging to him. So in that sense, there are reasons God does things according to his nature and according to his will. But I don't think that you're able to demonstrate, though, that there's an outside force that compels him in some manner.
Well, did God choose his nature?
I mean, I'm not really 100% sure, but I would think he chooses his nature, yeah.
That seems strange. So if he chooses his nature, he could change it at any time.
Not necessarily.
Why not? So there's something in his nature that stops him from changing his nature?
I mean, his nature is good. He chooses his nature. That doesn't mean that. I mean, in theory, maybe he could change his nature. I don't think it necessarily follows that because he's actively choosing his nature, that he could change it to anything, or that he would change it to. Maybe the right way to phrase it is that he would change it.
Why? Like, what is preventing him from changing it to anything?
Well, say you now, right? And you're not even like God, but we use you as an analogy. You probably could go around and torture kittens, but let's say like you wouldn't. It's just something along those lines.
Yes, but I wouldn't because I'm determined by my nature. My nature is that I would feel bad doing it, so I wouldn't do it. So I'm determined to not do it by my nature. I don't choose to not do it. I am incapable of doing it because it's against my nature.
Right, but you're not sovereign and independent. Your nature is dependent upon external factors, whereas his is exclusively dependent upon himself.
Well, that's what we're asking. Like, how does that apply? How does God, if he could choose his nature, or if he can't choose his nature, because it seems like he can't, based off of what you've described, he is incapable of changing his nature in certain ways because he's stopped from doing that by something in himself, which would be his nature. So his nature seems to stop him from being able to change his nature.
I'd say that, look,
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, go on. I mean, I'll just make one final point and I'll
you
just
go.
pass it. So I don't think I said that he can't. I said that in theory, he could, I guess, do as he pleases. I just don't feel that he would ever change his nature from being all loving, all merciful, all just, and so on and so forth. I just don't think that he would, not that he couldn't, that he's limited in that sense.
Right. So just to clarify, when I say couldn't, I mean he wouldn't. Wouldn't would be the same thing there. There is some reason, something that is making him not or won't do that. So what is that thing? That thing that's preventing him from wanting to or choosing to change seems to be his nature. So he has a reason determining the fact that he's not going to change.
Yeah, and that reason be his character, his nature, his personality. I mean, anyway, I'm going to pass it back to Foxy. I don't want to hog the mic here.
Sure. So the question would be is how is God any different from me in that his nature determines his choices and mine determines my choices? And you're saying God has this extra free will thingy. What would that be?
I'm just saying that he's the difference between you and him, and I think I know where you're going with it, but the difference between you and him is just that you don't have sovereignty over all existence, and you're just contingent and dependent and so on, and he is. I think is a substantial difference. But again, I'm going to drop out of this convo. I don't want to keep it going.
Nice chatting with you.
Like, so, what is it? I don't know. I think the thing is there is like God's got libertarian free will, and we've got, you know, free will given a certain set of choices, basically. Like, we're bound by our limitations because we're, you know, humans in, you know, a naturalistic environment.
Right, and the question here is to try and elucidate.
So, I mean, it's been a really interesting conversation, and, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I still don't really get what you mean about, you know, not having reason. But anyway, if you don't mind, maybe I can just ask you, you know, one more question for a laugh. You know what I mean? My favorite question to ask. So, is it possible that you're a dinosaur in a bed with a tinfoil hat on, dreaming everything into existence?
Sure.
Super. Well, look, I'm going to leave you on that note. I'd say that that's pretty absurd. It's been pretty fun. You know, thank you for moderating, Franks. You know, good to see you guys here, the people who ask questions. You know, I stayed quite a bit longer than I said I would. I'm pretty tired. So, you know, have a good day. Nice talking, guys.
Yep. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate the conversation.
Cheers.
It was pleasant talking with you.
Thank you.
Foxy.
All right. That was fun, guys. I will talk to you later. I'm going to go get some dinner. Thanks again for hosting. Frank, see you guys